I want to talk a little bit about some meetings. You say meetings, they can be boring and you can lose your train of thought, or they can be stimulating and they can inspire you. So I want to talk about a couple of meetings that have done that. I'm from Winnipeg, Canada. Anybody heard of the Winnipeg Jets hockey team? Well, those of you from Washington, I want to congratulate you, and I want to say that our team was the last Canadian team standing. And to be in a crowd of Washingtonians who are so proud of hockey makes me feel right at home. In my city of Winnipeg, we gathered 650 people about a year ago to talk about what Canada's energy mix would look like a generation from now, when our kids and our grandchildren were getting into a vehicle, flicking on a switch, trying to cool off, try to stay warm. And we put up a website and 380,000 people gave us ideas. 350,000 from Canada alone. So we called them to my city of Winnipeg and said, we want you to be on panels together, whether you're an Indigenous leader, an environmentalist, or a CEO of an oil and gas firm. And we want you to talk to each other about how you see the world looking in 30 years. And at the end of the day-and-a-half discussion, I posed the question, how many of you out there were uncomfortable at some stage of these discussions? And every single hand went up. They were all uncomfortable because they hadn't spent an hour with Indigenous leaders or with environmentalists or with academics who specialize in renewable energy or people who produce oil and gas. They were all uncomfortable. And I said that discomfort is a very good thing, because if we're comfortable, we're not learning. If we're always in the safe zone, then there's not much room to grow. And just a very few days from now, I will be releasing the Generation Energy Report for all Canadians and for anybody who wants to click onto the website to get the essence of what we had discussed that day, of which is the transition inevitably to a low-carbon economy, and the role of conventional sources of fossil fuels that we will be extracting more and more sustainably, and to use that wealth to help finance the transition. And there is no fuel that is going to facilitate that transition more powerfully, more affordably than natural gas and LNG. And as a Canadian, I am very excited to talk about our LNG potential on both coasts, the West Coast in British Columbia and the East Coast in Nova Scotia, and to understand that Canada is poised to be a world leader in the export of LNG to economies in Asia and in Europe who so badly need our cleaner fuel, our cleaner, affordable fuel. And then I got on a plane only 2 weeks ago. It was a very long ride. If you want to know the itinerary, it was Winnipeg, Ottawa, Newark, New Jersey, Newark, Buenos Aires, a couple of meetings in Buenos Aires, and then a 2.5-hour ride to Bariloche. Bariloche was the home of the meeting of the G20 energy ministers, who came from all over the world, who came from every continent. And you know, consensus is not easy to find in this business. We in the Government of Canada have just bought a pipeline because of the importance of getting our resources to export markets through the west coast of Canada and on to Asia. There is no consensus in Canada about whether or not to build a pipeline, who should build a pipeline, what should be in that pipeline, who has equity stakes in the pipeline. These are very deeply held views, and they're often in contradiction to each other, and it can be very tense. So you can imagine what it's like when 20 ministers from across the G20 are negotiating a consensus communique. Just think about who's in the room. Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, the European Union, Great Britain, France, Germany, Italy, the list goes on, Mexico, Canada, and the United States. Hot off the press, a unanimous communique, which in itself in this environment of nation states who are struggling over trade issues and so much else, there was a consensus on the future of energy in the G20. And I want to read you just one very small bit of the consensus because I know it will interest you. We recognize the key role that natural gas currently plays for many G20 countries and its potential to expand significantly over the coming decades, supporting transitions towards lower emission energy systems. We will endeavor to improve the functioning, transparency, and competitiveness of gas markets with a strategic view of the supply chain, including LNG and storage facilities at a global level. Not bad, eh? That a consensus from the G20 nations. And the reason that we were able to come up with this language is because there is a recognition everywhere we travel. In Asia, in Africa, in Europe, North America, South America, Australia, and New Zealand, that the world needs natural gas. It needs LNG. It needs the export of producing countries like my own to displace less clean sources of energy worldwide. So my message to you is that Canada is open for business and open for trade. It supports what you do and the way you do it. You are always looking for more sustainable ways to develop your resource, to transport it safely. A clean energy for a cleaner future for Canada and for the world. Thank you for your contribution to that. Thank you very much.